Hey everyone, how's it going? Good. Thank you all so much for being here. This is our first live taping for This Is Uncomfortable, so we're really excited. My name is Reema Khrais, and I am the host of This Is Uncomfortable, which is a show from Marketplace about life and how money messes with it. And you know, if you haven't heard it, it's not necessarily a podcast about saving or how to invest. It's really a podcast about our feelings, how money impacts our romantic relationships or our friendships, how it shapes our identities or the jobs we go after. We launched earlier this year in June, and every week I work with a really talented team of producers to push out a new episode. And we're called This Is Uncomfortable because it can be really uncomfortable to talk about money. There's a lot of shame and secrecy wrapped up in it. And so part of our mission is to make it not feel so uncomfortable. And so to get started today, I want to get a sense of the room and ask you all some questions. So raise your hand if you would feel comfortable telling the person next to you how much money you make. I'm gonna get a little closer so I can see you all. Okay, so a good number of hands. Okay, keep your hands up if you would feel comfortable telling the entire room how much money you make. Okay, some hands went down. And keep your hands up if you are happy with how much money you make. There's one hand that just went down. So the reason I bring this up is because today we are going to talk about salaries and specifically salary negotiations. And then later I'm going to be joined on stage by Julia Furlan and Keisha TK Dutes. But first, we're going to get started with a little story that is airing on this week's podcast. So about 3 years ago, Caitlin Boston decided it was time. During her performance review, she was going to ask her boss for a pay raise. Caitlin had been working at this design agency in New York for 2 years in user experience research, and she was armed with all of the reasons for why she should get a $10,000 pay raise. She had been working crazy hours and just landed a massive multi-million-dollar project, and with more than 7 years under her belt, she had been assuming a lot of leadership positions.
I knew I was really good at my job, so I felt super prepared.
So Caitlin walks into her boss's office, takes out her bullet-pointed list, and makes her case. Then her boss, with zero hesitation, says no, she's not there yet. So Caitlin asked her what specific concrete things she could do to get a raise, and her boss, she just went back to her go-to line. That's when Caitlin did the thing we all do when we're angry at work. She found her closest colleague and vented. I mean, who amongst us hasn't left our manager's office and immediately went to tell a group of women?
She was like, "How did your conversation go? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm not okay. I'm really not okay. Does this look like I'm okay? Because I'm not okay."
There were actually a lot of whispery conversations that day. 3 of Caitlin's closest colleagues had their reviews and also asked their manager for a raise, and they'd all been rejected.
I think we all found a little deflated because it was sort of, well, what do we need to do? Because you're looking at 4 different flavors of excellent, and if 4 different flavors of excellent is still not enough, then, what ice cream shop are we having to go into here? Because, look at us. We are everything you could want.
So Caitlin and her coworkers decided to go out to eat that night, a kind of misery loves company and this together kind of dinner. And that's when they shared the hard numbers, how much money they make. At the table, there were 4 women. 3 of them were people of color, including Caitlin, she's Korean American, and all 3 of them had at least 7 years of experience. One had a PhD. It turned out they were making the same amount of money, a high 5-figure number. And then there was one white woman who was fresh out of college.
She's like, "I feel bad, but I'm making the same amount." And I think we all just kind of turned.
Wait, so just to be clear, all 4 of you all were being paid the same amount?
The exact same number.
Wow.
And Caitlin says this 24-year-old, she was a hardworking, deserving person. It wasn't about her, but it just didn't feel fair that somebody at her level would be making the same as seasoned coworkers with advanced degrees. Caitlin went home that night, and the gears in her head were turning.
I'm gonna ask my male coworker tomorrow, who I'm close to, what he's making, because I just need to validate that we're all being screwed equally.
This male coworker, he was someone who had the same exact qualifications, same job title as her. So the next morning, Caitlin pulled him aside, told him everything, and then asked him the question.
I think at that point I was just getting so anxious about it. I was like, I need to ask you, like, I really like to know what you're making, because I need to find out if we're all being screwed or if you're being made more, because if you're making more, that's really not gonna be okay.
And Caitlin, she could tell he was getting uncomfortable.
Oh, he's like, yeah, I don't know. So that's when I just kind of improv'd the question of like, hey, if I ask you if you're making over or under this number, can you just say, I'm making over or under? And that's when I saw him kind of relax, and he was like, yeah. He's like, I can do that. I can do that.
Okay.
And I picked what I thought was a really egregiously high number. And he, goes, oh yeah, I'm making under that. And then I picked a number that was $10,000 less than that. And I said, are you making over or under this? And he goes, oh, I'm making over that. And when he said that, then, that's when my hair went up and just like lit on flame. But yeah, and I was like, oh, well, just so you know, your female coworkers who are, stellar performers, we're making X. And his face, I'll just never forget his face. His face was like, oh.
Yeah, based on her over-under question, he was making at least $20,000 more than her, even though they both had the same job background, same master's degree, and had been with the company for the same amount of time.
There's just there's no logic to that. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing to rationalize about that. It's just wrong.
This is the point in the story where I'd find the closest bathroom and cry in a stall, but not Caitlin.
I'm not an angry person, but when I get angry, I get super angry. And it's like very contained, like Korean rage. Like I will burn everyone who tries to get in my way. It's to the point that I really feel like if someone had like rubbed up against me, like the sheer friction of it, I would have just like lit on fire in the moment.
So she goes on a walk to calm down. She couldn't believe just how much her company had been undervaluing her.
And I thought, you know what? I could grow more and get paid more if I just left right now, because I can't work that angry.
So you decided on that walk pretty much that you were going to leave.
Oh, absolutely.
And Caitlin says she loved her job, but she compares it to a bad boyfriend. No one is ever like, he doesn't respect you, but he's funny and cute, so stay with him. They're like, no, he doesn't respect you, leave him. And on top of that, she was dealing with $120,000 of student debt that just felt impossible to pay off.
That's when I realized, like, I'm just gonna get paid. We're gonna shift into Caitlin gets paid mode.
Okay, but to make more money, first, Caitlin needed more data. So she logged on to LinkedIn.
And I just start blasting people,
People you don't know.
or whatever. People I don't know. No, people I totally don't know.
She started messaging people who had similar backgrounds and positions as her in user research, most of them white men. And she essentially asked the same question she asked her colleague. Are you making over or under this amount?
And how many people got back to you?
Oh, it was 3.
So not as big of a data set as she was hoping for, but it was something. And all 3 people reported back that they were making about the same as what her male coworker was making, a comfortable 6-figure salary. So now she knew for sure. She had been lowballing herself.
I was in an echelon of salary potential that I had no idea was even possible.
And at that time, Caitlin was applying to new jobs left and right, mostly with large tech companies. And in less than a month, she had gotten 4 job offers. 4.
When that was happening, I was like, Caitlin, you're the woman. Like, yes, like I just totally had like that moment. It was very much like, we've done all the things we said we were gonna do and it's working. Oh my God, it's working.
I don't know about you all, but I cannot imagine getting 4 job offers in a month. Caitlin says user experience positions are typically in high demand, but clearly she has a damn good resume. The company that she was leaning towards the most was Etsy. She remembers when she got on the phone with one of their HR reps to negotiate her position. She had decided that she was not going to ask as much as those guys on LinkedIn were telling her they made. She was going to ask for more.
When I offered the number, the recruiter just goes, I'm going to have to review this. This was a little bit higher than what we were expecting. And I was like, yeah, this is the minimum I'm going to come in for. And then he went and did his little, HR dance back wherever they do their little HR dances.
Like, were there ever moments where you doubted yourself, or you were nervous you were going to come off as greedy, or?
Oh, yeah. I was definitely feeling a lot of feelings about, oh my God, who am I to ask for this? But on the other hand, I felt if I don't do this negotiation now this way, like the right way, then that's only on me. And then, oh, Caitlin, what's wrong with you? Like, come on. This is so basic for men.
Caitlin and the HR guy go back and forth a couple of rounds. He says he's not able to match the salary she wants. So then Caitlin brings up that her other job offers are able to match her desired salary.
And she was like, okay, let me see what I can do. And he came back and he said, well, okay, we're willing to offer you X, and I'm going to tell you that you're making more than X, Y, and Z people. And I'm like, okay, can you do better? And he just goes, and that's when he told me, I can guarantee you are maxing out everything.
She took the job.
What was the percentage difference from your previous salary to what they were offering?
It was a 41% jump.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
What?
It's life-changing money.
Whew. Caitlin says she's not trying to broadcast her salary, but it is safe to say it is in the six figures. She knows she's in a really fortunate position. Her industry is pretty lucrative, but she says her experience, it can be useful to a lot of people outside of tech, because what she's basically talking about is advocating for yourself. Before she launched into this whole pay transparency mission, she didn't understand her worth or even what was fair. And she feels really strongly about helping other women and people of color to know what they should negotiate. She even shares her salary with her junior coworkers. Because by not negotiating, Caitlin tells them, you are holding yourselves back. So basically to everyone in this room, get that money. All right, next up on stage, I'm gonna be joined by someone who is typically on the other side of the equation when it comes to negotiations. In fact, I have negotiated with her myself because she signs my paycheck every 2 weeks. Please welcome to the stage my boss, Sitara Nieves. Hey, Sitara.
Hey, Reema.
This isn't awkward.
It's a little awkward.
So I wanted to sit down with you because, I really want to be able to pick your brain about what it's like to be in your position. And as I mentioned, we have negotiated before.
We have.
Do you remember when we negotiated?
I remember some of it. You probably remember it better than me.
Yeah, I remember just I had all this pent up energy. I had consulted literally I guess I've never told you this, but
You have not.
I consulted all of my friends and consulted people in the industry. And I remember people told me to ask for a certain number that was higher than I felt comfortable doing. And so I was just this nervous, I just was this nervous ball of energy. And could you tell? Honestly.
I don't know if I could tell. I
Yeah.
remember you actually doing more of it over email.
Oh, maybe I did. I think I confirmed because someone told me put it in writing. So I was like, okay, that's what I'll do. But that's so funny because I remember feeling like I was gonna approach it almost or I sensed that there was gonna be some tension. Or I was like, okay, I need to be ready. But it was actually very matter of fact, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how you typically try to approach negotiations?
Well, yeah, I guess we have actually never talked about this because Reema didn't tell me what any of these questions were going to be ahead of time, by the way. But I feel like every negotiation is a way for me as a boss person to start a relationship or to continue a relationship with somebody that I work with and value. And so I don't approach it in a nervous way, even though you're probably not alone in feeling.
Wait, do you feel nervous?
I don't feel nervous when I'm in my seat. I feel nervous when I'm negotiating for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like I don't remember you being nervous, but I remember you being very clear about what you wanted.
Yeah. What is the biggest mistake people usually make when they approach you to negotiate? I'm so curious.
I guess there's maybe a couple of things. So the first one is when people don't negotiate, which is
That happens.
that happens, especially when people are young or early in their career. I've actually told people when I've offered them a job before, and they've said, "Oh my God, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like, would really love that job." I've actually been like, "So you should actually say that you want to think about this, and then come back to me
Really?
with another number, because I'm totally lowballing you right now, and I'm expecting you to negotiate."
Wait, seriously, you'll say that? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
because I think when you're like first and you are like really want that first job. I remember really wanting my first job, and I think that's actually what I did, is just accept whatever the first thing somebody gave me was, because I was like, oh my God, I have a job. This is like, this is the thing. So that's negotiate is the first mistake for negotiating is not negotiating.
Yeah.
And then I guess depending on where you are and what kind of company you're entering into, like there's obviously a huge range of what kind of salary places can offer. We work in public media. That's a really different level of salary than working for like a big VC-funded company. But there's a bunch of other things that you can and should ask for depending on what the company is. So that can be anything from like asking for more vacation time or professional development or a whole range of things that you should also ask for money. Don't get me wrong, you should ask for more money.
And so when people ask for money, do they typically, how often will they give you a range, and how often will they be like, this is the number that I want?
Oh, interesting.
And which one is better?
It's kind of all over the place
Yeah.
how people approach it. I would say that offering a range is essentially asking your employer to go for the lower part of that range. And so I would encourage people to go for a number that is higher than they think is reasonable, as you just said that you did, which is interesting to hear. But asking for a range, I think, depending on who the employer is, your range may be under what they were thinking about paying you or expecting you to want.
Then why even like do this dance? Like, you know what I mean? It's so funny that it's sort of the expectation that you would have to go back and forth, you know?
I know.
I don't know if you have any. Well,
there's so much of this in work that is like that, right? Like, why do we do this dance?
Yeah, and it's just like part of the culture. It's funny, I actually had a former boss who said something similar to me, that they'll offer a salary and then they'll take it and he'll be like, actually, like we're supposed to do this back and forth.
Right.
Yeah, so, and so do people typically ask for, so it sounds like people typically ask for maybe too little or too much, actually?
It's a little, it depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially if people ask around what other people are being paid, both inside the organization and outside of the organization, as everybody should. But sometimes when you're getting salary, like what other people are making in other organizations, it's not necessarily apples to apples. So I think that's just something to know. And I think it really kind of is all over the place, but I think for any negotiation, coming in high is always better than coming in low.
Right.
And asking as many people as you can so that you know what that number should be is really important. And then when you actually are in front of a boss person talking about salary, you know, how that person reacts is going to be really telling to you. Like, you're not always going to get a yes, right? Like, I would love to pay everybody on my team like
much?
all the money, but I am limited by internal equity, and which is really important to me.
What is that?
and-
Okay.
What is what?
Or keep going.
So internal equity and what my budget is, and you know, all of the things. But you know, having a good sense of what is out there is super important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because a sentiment that I hear a lot from like my friends is just, and I felt this before too, which is like, oh, I don't want to ask for too much because I don't want to come off as greedy, or I don't want to upset my boss. Have you ever felt annoyed or upset by someone asking for too much?
No.
No.
No, I mean, I think I guess the thing I was going to say before is that, like, when you sit down with the person who's deciding your fate or offering you salary, it's really a good way for both of you. Like, you are giving each other feedback and perhaps not agreeing on something, and like trying to work it out so you're both happy.
So you like approach it as like more of a collaborative, sounds like.
Ideally, yeah.
ideally.
But I've also had bosses who I've gone to in the past, where like it was really telling how they responded to me trying to get more of what I thought I deserved, and like sort of like we heard in the tape, like that idea of an abusive relationship, like when somebody's telling you who they are in a negotiation also, even if you don't get what you want, the way that they proceed and like whether you trust them and all of those other things they're really part of it too.
Right. And so you said you get nervous sometimes when you approach a negotiation. Do you write a script ever? Or do you rehearse?
I rehearse.
Yeah.
For myself, not for if I'm asking for something for myself, I rehearse.
Yeah.
Because I'm super worried I'm gonna like just fuck it up and get it wrong. And I also, I actually, whether you write it down or whether you practice it to the mirror or to a friend, I think it is good to know what you want to say about your own value, and then also know what you might say depending on a range of things that your boss might come back to you with. So whether that's a much lower salary offer or anything, just like,
Like be ready to counter.
if she offers me this amount of money, what will I say?
Yeah.
Or if, whatever the range of things that depend on what your situation is.
And is it totally appropriate just to be like, I need to think about that. I'm going to get back to you.
You should always
do that?
You should always do that. Yeah.
Even if you're happy with it.
Even if you're happy with it, you should always do it. And I think there's also, if you get an offer that you're happy with, there's always an opportunity to think about what else you can add on to that.
Yeah.
That may be, again, that might be money, that might be professional development, that could be a bunch of things. But always think about it, and then come back the next day or in 2 days.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends and your loved ones.
Something I'm curious to ask you about is body language, and I feel like as soon as I say that, everyone's going to be looking at our body language. But we've talked about this before because you have like taught me, or you've told me to maybe like channel power poses during interviews for the podcast. So like sort of sitting up straight, like sort of having your feet locked in the ground. And I'm curious, like if you ever think about body language during a negotiation from either perspective. Have you?
Interesting. So I have thought about it more in, I think about my own body language the most when I'm facing a difficult conversation. So that can be a negotiation or just like something that I think is going to involve conflict. And some of it is really just like leaning forward.
know,
And
now I feel
it's
like
hard
I'm
to do
slouching.
with this mic in a way, but I don't know that that's the best. I don't know if that's the best pose to take right away in a negotiation, because it's a little aggressive.
Yeah. Show us your poses, Sitara.
I think whether it's power poses or just being aware of your body language,
Yeah.
I think is good, because it also gives you some power over how you're being perceived, at least thinking about it. And you probably don't want to think about it too much during the negotiation, because you don't want to like be so self-aware. You want to actually focus on the things.
Yeah,
you
now I
wanna
feel like
focus on.
self-aware of my body language. Okay, what are some questions that people should be asking you, like, their boss, that maybe they're not asking during a negotiation?
Their boss or potential boss.
Or potential boss?
I think
Maybe that's not money related.
Yeah, well, on the money-related
Okay.
piece, I think it is good to ask how salaries are, like how salary recommendations are figured out at the place where you are. And then I do think it is worth asking around or thinking about the things that, so money's always important, but the other things that are important to you. And yeah, that can be like, I want to go to Work It. Will you pay for it? Or I want to be able to shadow this person who's a job that's really cool, and actually start getting that stuff in writing, depending on what it is.
Is there something outlandish that someone's asked you that maybe you didn't expect that's just like very specific?
I don't know if this is outlandish. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten asked about like, could somebody get their, like, take Uber to work and get that paid? I haven't had anything super outlandish. I would love something outlandish.
And can you, I would love to hear from your perspective a time that you negotiated and how that went.
Oh, okay. So I'll tell you the worst negotiation I ever had, which is when I was earlier in my career, I was advocating for myself to get a promotion, and my boss was like dragging his heels and dragging his heels and dragging his heels, and then finally he brought me into his office and he was like, "You have great news, Sitara. I'm promoting you." And I was like, "Oh, that's great. I'm really happy to hear that." And he was like, "This is the salary," which was like very little above what I was making with much more responsibility.
Oh, God.
And I was like, "Well, I'd like to think about it." And he said, "I need to announce this in 20 minutes, and if you you can say no, but if you say no, we're not going to move forward with it."
That's just unfair.
It was awful. It was awful. And if I could do it again, which I spent like the next 6 months going into my, like, through my brain,
Right.
I would have just been like, but I actually needed I actually really wanted the promotion, and I felt like I deserved it, and I didn't really want it. I didn't have any other options.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but I replayed that over and over and over again in my head about how I could have done that differently. I really blamed myself for it, which in retrospect
was not fair.
is not really fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also made me really really conscious of negotiating in all of my future things, and the times that the next couple times I did dial a white guy for advice on how I should actually negotiate. So I had two.
I love that.
Well, it's what would a white guy do conversation that everyone should have in their heads.
Just have it on speed dial.
So I actually dialed Matt Lieber, who, when he just graduated from business school, to help me negotiate, and he actually was like, "This is what I would do," and it was a much higher number
Really?
than I would have ever asked for, and I did not get that number, but I asked for it, and that was that was helpful, and also helped me think about some of the other things I should ask for.
Right. Right. I think it's easier for someone else to assign a value to you almost. Do you know what I mean?
Completely.
That's a great story.
In many things in life. Yeah.
And so, any final words of advice for anyone negotiating? I feel like you gave us a lot of tips.
No, I mean, I think think about what your value is, ask other people to think about what your value is, and then ask for more than that. And you won't always get it for good reasons sometimes, but sometimes you will. And everyone here should get what they deserve and what they value.
Great. Thank you so much, Sitara.
Thank you.
Now I feel ready to negotiate.
Uh-oh.
Next time I negotiate. All right. Now we're going to bring out our next guests, Julia Furlan and Keisha TK Dutes. But first, another round of applause for Sitara, y'all. Thank you. All right, I just want to keep that song playing.
I mean, truly.
So for our final segment for today's show, we're going to do something that we call the group chat, where we bring on some friends of the podcast to answer some pressing questions from our audience when it comes to money and work. So kind of like the questions you'd ask your own group chat. So here with me on stage is Julia Furlan. She is a host and reporter at NPR. You may have heard her stepping in for Sam Sanders on It's Been a Minute or telling you how to make friends as adults for NPR's podcast Life Kit. Also, Keisha TK Dutes, she co-hosted TK in the AM, which is on hiatus after 1,000 episodes. And she is a producer at Glitch and is the executive producer consultant for Here to Slay, which is amazing. Y'all are amazing, badass women. So basically, before this conference, we sent out a survey to ask you all if you had any questions about money and work stuff. And so we're gonna go through some of them right now and see what advice we can give.
Ooh, I'm ready.
Y'all ready?
Yeah, no,
Let's
I'm
go.
extremely
Okay,
ready.
I think this will be
extremely
fun.
ready.
Okay, oh wow, it's a huge screen. So our first question, someone wrote in saying, I really don't, I hate my boss. I really don't like the way my boss operates. I don't like how he treats people, and I'm really bad at hiding that. I'm worried that I can't stay at this company because I can't deal with my boss, but I don't want to give up a good job. How do I deal with a shitty boss? You
That one's really hard. I have a big face, and I have trouble hiding how I feel in certain situations. So I really empathize with this person. And having a boss who you really just really don't enjoy spending time with is unfortunate because you spend so much time with your boss. I would say that there's two things that you should do. And one of them is deal with the situation that you have in front of you, which is learn to bring your best self, even if you hate it, and even if it's really hard for you. Learning how to sort of take feedback and give feedback is ultimately part of any job that you're gonna ever have to do, and it's not super fun, but it's very valuable. It's a very valuable skill to be able to sort of bring your best self even when it's difficult. And then the other one is try and find another job that you like better, because
There's that.
there are jobs. I think that oftentimes people feel I feel like I might say this more than once, but people feel like their job that sucks is the only thing in front of them. And they feel dedicated to working and fixing the solution. I mean, I think a lot of us are producers. We have this very strong instinct to produce for the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just gotta say goodbye to a certain job. Nothing is better for that than getting laid off, which happened to me and will happen to most of us.
Listen.
So,
Yeah.
your job is a job.
Okay, so you have a big face. I too suffer from big facedness. And sometimes that shows on, first of all, basically what I'm gonna say is turn off the, when you're doing the video chats, turn the video off.
Oh my God.
First of all. I got caught out there about a month ago. Sometimes it's the boss and sometimes it's just how they manage, right? And it's the shenanigans of the job and you're over it. So someone said a thing.
Wait, and now I want to
And
hear
I
the
was
story.
over it, and I was on the video camera being over it. I was like, oh. This was a month ago, y'all.
Oh no! You got to be I'm going through a tunnel. I don't know. The call
Sorry.
dropped.
But
the signal dropped.
Did they notice?
They did notice, and also I was in a room with humans, so the people in the room noticed. But when you are when the job knows that they're effing up, when they know, they almost are, they can't flag you on that, right? My reaction was a natural reaction and I should have conducted myself better, but also they couldn't even say anything else to me because they were just running a circus at that point.
Right. They
You know
knew
what
that
I'm
you
saying?
had a right to be frustrated.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they knew it. They knew it. So
Yeah.
I'm saying turn the video off. But also, and then I had to go back, and I thought about it a lot. I was like, okay.
Do you address this?
I didn't address it with them,
No.
forget them. I'm fine. Look at me, I'm still working. But I thought about it with myself, and I was like, okay, am I bringing my A game? Am I bringing my best self? What is it about that moment that irked me? What is it about that person that said it that bothered me? How can I fix it for myself. Forget about how can I fix it for them, because a hierarchy is going to work how it's designed to work, and it's not designed to help me be efficient, right? So how can I be efficient in this hierarchy? So I had to fix my face. So now on those cams, I turned the cams off. Also in the room, I'm trying to be chill. I'm just like, you know what? Let it go. Because this thing that they're talking about, while it affects me and what I'm trying to bring to this company, it is also not worth this.
Right, because then that
it's
just
not
distracts
worth
you
the
more.
moment.
It's like you're
Right.
not trying to,
Yeah.
There's also like something that you just said, I think is important to highlight, which is that like sometimes in the moment you feel panicked and you feel like you're going to have to address it right now, or you feel like you want to be your authentic self, like you would at home with your friends or whatever. There is a lot to be said for sort of processing something not in that moment and then bringing a tighter, more researched, and sort of like smarter story later on.
Yeah.
There is something to be said. It doesn't mean that you lose if you just come back with a different kind of feedback.
Well, also you can like try to be constructive about it too, right?
Yeah.
Like you can approach your boss and be like, hey, like I just want to be clear. Like, what are your preferences on communicating? Like, what do you need? This is what I need. This is what I need to be supported. And so that way, at least you can like reset the expectations and like communicate, as opposed to just like pushing, you know?
I've definitely circled back. I was like, oh, the thing that the thing that was said in the meeting, that wasn't accurate. Actually, here's all the accurate things. So, and then they're like, oh, okay, cool. You know, like that's it.
Yeah.
long as I hear cool, I'm good. Like,
I also feel like there's like one more thing that you can do, which is like when you walk into a room with somebody that you feel bad with, taking a minute before you walk into that room and walking in and like taking a deep breath and sort of like centering yourself in your body and being like really strong. Sometimes you listen to a song or something where you just basically like walk into the room with intention, with the like wholeness of yourself, and there you will feel more powerful, even if you aren't.
That's great advice.
Though I hope you are and become more powerful. May us all.
All right,
May
that's great
we
advice.
all.
All right, next question, y'all. So someone wrote in asking, how do you tell people what your rates are and feel confident asking for what you deserve? So going back to what you just said. And this is also like in theme with like our show, right? With the salary negotiations, but more in the context of maybe freelancers. So yeah, how do you do that?
oh, okay. So this one is tricky.
You freelance.
Freelance. And even when you're looking and you're trying to get that salary right, first I ask other people. At every time that I go up a step, I ask new people in that step, in that level, like, okay, what are you getting? What are you getting? What is the white guy getting? What is the white woman getting? What are my black sisters getting? What are my, every level, I'm looking. Like last year, I was here at Werk It in New York though, up for a job, and you know, they gave me this number that I didn't feel comfortable with, but I had not reached the level to know if this was a real legit number, right? I called Julia, I called a bunch of people. I went on Twitter and I said, hey y'all, I'm having trouble figuring out this rate. I'm at Werk It right now. Let me know if y'all wanna talk about this title and this rate. Several people replied and was like, I'm at the bar, let's talk about it. And I had like 10 women around me saying, I'm from Texas, this is what we get here. I'm from New York, this is what we get here. And knowing and seeing that made me realize, and then I was like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And then what I realized is the job and the money they were trying to give me was not worth the trouble. So when I'm asking for my rate, I first I do that research.
And it's like what you're talking about is really networking too, which is like we always like sort of roll our eyes at as this like obnoxious, annoying thing we have to do. But I feel like there are ways to approach it and be like more action oriented, right?
I also think that like as media companies like disappear and our industry grows and shrinks like a petri dish thing, I think that we have a moral and sort of like professional obligation to each other to be honest and to sort of within reason be open to each other's struggles and sort of like share the things. I have not I don't think that I've been cut down by sharing the things that are difficult or the things that I want for my colleagues. And
Right.
I feel like as people grow in their careers and eventually are laid off or switch jobs or whatever, there is an amount that you gain a lot more from being generous than you do from being miserly. So I would, that would be and networking, what TK was talking about, like, do your research. If you show up and you have not done your research, then you may be leaving money on the table that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And like, if you have people that you can reach out to, I feel like we should be more open with our salaries with each other, with people that we trust.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And when you get to the number that you feel comfortable with, low key, put a little more on it, right? Think about the incidentals of your life, right? You gotta go to urgent care. You might not have benefits or whatever. Think about that number. Also, taxes if you're freelance. The government says you have to pay them, but whatever. I mean,
Okay, TK.
but if you decide to, think about that, negative 30% right there. So that number you're comfortable with, add a little more and say it with your chest. Put that on paper and send it.
Yes.
And send it and send it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Right, because also if you're not charging enough or not asking for enough, like you're not only hurting yourself, but you're undercutting other folks in the industry, right? Because it's like you're not raising the bar, you're lowering it.
And the company doesn't have an incentive to try
Right.
and pay
They're not
you
going to do
more.
it. They're not going to do it. So it's, I think it's on us to talk more and create a new and fair standard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Great. We can move on to the next question unless y'all have more advice.
Let's do it.
All right, so question number
this animation.
3. I have a coworker who is routinely late in completing tasks. Everyone is aware, and I have complained to leadership. Our entire team changes due dates to leave for 2 extra days to be late and make the overall deadline. Our VP has suggested I speak with her directly when she's late to let her know she hurts my workload. But as the only Black woman on a team of creatives, I do not want to reprimand her at all. That is not my job. There have been several general meeting announcements about responding to emails and submitting on time. How do I keep my shit on time and popping when I have to depend on her? Fire her, someone says.
Yeah.
That was my first instinct.
Really?
Like, how does this person have a job still?
Yeah.
And then that hit home for me, as a Black woman, that it's this weird thing, like people, okay, so we're living in this world, everybody's like open and talking and it's great, and I do want an open and like receptive boss. But if you don't recognize that you have a job to do as my boss, to regulate the team, to make sure that we are all supported, to step in when shit is getting hit in the fan, this shit is clearly hitting the fan.
Yeah.
I, as a Black woman, know my role in history as the fixer, as the mammy, as the person. So how dare you, as a boss, VP, whoever the fuck you are, ask me to police my coworker? That's not on me. So what I do is make sure my shit is on time, right? And if the buck stops at this lady, then the whole project stops, right?
Yeah.
The whole team doesn't stop for this person.
Yeah.
But if she is putting a wrench in the team's works, then she's got to go.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not gonna fire her.
Right. Well, so, okay, what if she can't leave, right? Like, at the heart of the question, too, is like, how do you deal with a coworker who's just like not submitting their stuff,
pulling
who's
their
not
weight.
pulling their weight, right?
I name check them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, blah, blah, blah. Jane is not sending her assets. I cannot continue until
Yeah.
Jane sends her assets.
Yeah.
Send.
In writing.
In writing.
writing.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
think that there's some power to that. It seems like also that, clearly, as many companies have, there's a management problem. And it seems like the VP is putting it on these like sort of like generalized group emails that are like, hey, everybody
Yeah.
be on time. I'm
Don't forget.
cool.
No big
And
deal.
like that is so unhelpful.
Yeah.
Like the exchange for your power as a VP, like you have all this fucking power. You should do your job like everybody else is. And one of those things is delivering not so great messages. Like people have a fear of conflict and a fear of direct conversation, including me. I like really hate that. But like when that is what you have to do, it's the
Yeah.
VP's job or the manager,
Yeah.
whoever's managing this person needs to do a better job of managing
Yeah.
them. And I 100% one up what TK said about just like, it's not your job as the only Black woman on a team
Yeah.
of creatives to suddenly like manage this person
know.
who is fucking things up for everybody.
And in that moment, I'm always thinking because this has definitely come up in my life. I'm thinking, if you wanted me to do that, then I should lead this team.
Yeah,
Right.
they give me
That's
more money,
it.
give me
Right.
a better title.
Like, why are we even out here? You know?
Right.
You should lead all the teams.
I don't know, I'm trying.
You're so good.
One day. Oh, I love that.
She was my boss.
I was her boss.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was not great. Sorry.
I'm sure you were.
Keep going.
Well, so it reminds me of I work with someone where they do like almost health checks for their team. So they'll be like, okay, how's everyone feeling? Are you like in green, yellow, or red? And so it's like if someone's in the yellow and the red, if you're like not turning things on time or whatever, then that becomes like a collective problem, right? It's like, okay, so the team right now is in
And
yellow
these are
and
done
red.
like with a group?
Yeah, from what I understand. But like, I guess the general idea though is like, you know, if your manager is just not there, I mean, well, not in this case, but like if you don't feel comfortable approaching your manager or like aren't confrontational, there is a way maybe to do it as like a more collective thing of like, instead of using like you statements being like, hey, I feel like we're in this, like, I feel like we're gonna be late if we don't turn this in. So like, what do you think we can do?
Yeah.
Which again, it does like, at that point you are managing a little, which is like not fair. But like, if you have to be constructive about it, I think is
mean,
one way to go about it.
I think that
Yeah.
advocating for more communication is something that you could also do in this situation, in which like clearly like these like big emails are not working. If you had a morning stand-up where everybody's like going around and talking about the things that they need or their deadlines.
More accountability, yeah.
Like dividing the conflict up along, spreading it along 5 days can sometimes take the sort of like big conversation, we have to do this, blah, 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 sort of like take a little bit of the tension out of it. I don't know.
And you're in person, you got the body language, and then like, you know, if I am missing something, you know, Julia can say, well, I'm just waiting for these assets from TK. We'll link up later. You know, like in person, better than an email, and I'm, you know, like typing in caps at you. That's
Right.
So,
Right. You never
no.
did that.
because I ain't have to, right? Exactly.
Great. Is there any other advice y'all want to give for this?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
I feel bad for this person. My heart goes out to her.
I know.
I mean, I would say for her to, talk to the, don't just talk to the boss, but talk to the whole team, like you said, like together, and make it everybody's responsibility to check in on each other, because like that's the only way. And when you see somebody being the only one, like addressing a problem, step in as a coworker and be like, okay, I see you're the one that's flagging this all the time.
Right.
Can I help you with that?
And also having empathy for the person who's the only one, who in this case is the only Black woman on the team, and like. I would like call upon all of the other people on the team to step in as much as they can to uplift and sort of support the work of this person.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't take into consideration, and we were talking about that this morning, cultural aspects of dealing with employees and coworkers. Like, where did we come from literally, right? Where does the culture come from? And the culture of being a Black woman in the workplace is, like I said, being a fixer, being a person that is always gonna like make sure shit gets done. And honestly, now in 2019, we're realizing we can just sit back and do our jobs.
Right.
And that's what I'm out here doing.
Right. Good. Do your job. Say.
Yes.
I love it. All right, so our last question. So a common theme that we heard from folks is just, love this, fighting with men to get credit.
Oh my God.
So, someone wrote us and said, one person, they said, sorry, how do you deal with male coworkers who ask to work on your projects last minute after the majority of the work is done without sounding angry or ungrateful in front of your boss? Yeah.
A
Have you been
collective
there?
groan. Anyone else?
Have y'all?
You want to start?
Yeah.
All right, let's
Go for it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the feeling angry and ungrateful part in front of my boss thing, that kind of like weirds me out, right? Because we're at work, you pay me money, I do my job. Don't worry about my anger or my gratefulness. I don't feel grateful for something. I'm giving you my time and you're giving me money.
There's
So
a really good line from Mad
dead
Men,
that.
which is, that's what the money is for.
That's
Yeah.
exactly.
I love that.
And then the dude that's taking credit, right?
Yeah.
Or he wants to show up at the
Right.
Yeah, he's
okay.
like coming. From what I can
right.
tell, like the guy is like coming in last minute. The project's almost done, and being like, "So my work has
Yeah.
been. I want to work with you. I love working with you." Probably like I sense like a little flavor of like coming in at the last minute and like kissing ass, and then trying to get the name on the group
Right.
project that's
Especially
gonna get an A.
like a boss doesn't know all the time, like the,
did what.
you know, who
Yeah.
did what. So it's like easy just to be like, okay, yeah.
I mean,
here.
if I have nothing that's outstanding, then I have nothing for you, right? Okay, hey Jared. I don't know why I named him Jared. Because that behavior felt like Jared
Jared
behavior,
feels right.
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, hey Jared, I'm good. We're all lined up on this. Thanks. But if I do have something outstanding, it's usually some grunt work or some BS or something that I don't have the skills for, and it's just not done. So guess who's doing it? Jared.
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 I
So
will-
give
Sorry,
Jared
Jared.
that to
Yeah.
do. I mean, yeah.
Go for it.
I will say one thing that is like, it's not for Jared, it's for everyone. I just think that being aggressively generous about credit is really
Yeah.
important. So like, let's say that the project is like almost done. Finding ways to sort of acknowledge the work that has been done by every layer of every team
Yeah.
in every communication that you make is being clear about that as much as possible is gonna make it harder for Jared to come in at the end and be like, and then, I went to
Yeah.
a meeting. And it's like, Jared, you
Yeah.
didn't do anything in that meeting.
Jared,
And
get
a
out
lot
of here.
of us like
Jay, bro.
Jay, bro. A lot of us work on Slack, so like you can do that, right? You can give the
Yeah.
big presentation where no one gets credit, where it's the whole team,
Yeah.
and then you go in Slack, which. Haha, I've been there. I've done that. Okay, thank you, Cindy, for graphics. Thank you, Jared,
Yeah.
for the bullshit. Thank you, you know what I'm saying? Like, then everybody knows what time it is. And hopefully,
Yeah.
the VP is on that day leading.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Slack.
there's also another part of this question. Do you have a thing to say? Am I
No, please. Y'all have more interesting things to say. Please say it.
Is there like the part of this question that is like, am I going to seem like a jerk if I stand up for myself? And the possibility is that you might seem like people might perceive you as a jerk, and that is stupid and really irritating.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes it's the cost of standing up for yourself is saying like, I don't think that it's a good look for you in your business situation to say like, actually, Jared didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think that there are very graceful and sort of like petty ways to do it.
Passive aggressive.
Like you can just like slide in the credit for everybody and
Yeah.
then leave Jared out.
Yeah.
And or you could just say like, Jared, you really gave us some moral support or
Yeah.
something like really like gold star for you.
Turn negative speak into positive speak,
Right.
but also in alignment with the project.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on your workplace whether or not
Yeah.
you're going to be perceived as a jerk. It depends on what people think of. So, like, I don't know how the team works,
Yeah.
but like, I think that being aggressive about credit, especially for people with less power than you,
Yeah.
like as
Yeah.
you go up the hierarchy, it is so much more important as you move up to credit the people who have contributed to the work that you have presented, and giving them that.
Yeah.
Is like vital.
Yeah, and I feel like right. And you also have to do it for yourself too, right? Like I think it can come across as like boastful, but like, hey, look at me. But like, at the end of the day, if your boss doesn't know that you did something, like that's tied to promotions, that's tied to like assignments, that's tied to raises. So it's like to a certain extent, like you do have to like be able to rep yourself, even if it's uncomfortable or if it feels weird.
And
It is most of the time uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and
like no one
feels
wants to
weird.
do that. Like, but I think it's funny. It reminds me of a story. Someone I know like wanted to get credit on an assignment, but they felt really weird about like making it vocal or like making it well known. And so she asked like one of her colleagues, like, hey, like I just want to make it clear that like I'm sort of the authority on this. Do you mind in the next meeting just like asking me questions so it solidifies in people's mind that like I'm the go-to person for this, which is like one way to do it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Sort of like like a plant.
Yeah. Yo, you
little
have to set
plan,
yourself
yeah.
up to
But
look good. Like, you are sometimes the expert at the thing,
Yeah.
right? But also people, because of the bodies we come in or because of whatever, don't believe that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you get a coworker that's like your good, you know, like the person you tell your secrets to, the person that knows where the bodies are buried corporate-wise.
Corporate bodies.
You know, in which folder it's in. You get that person to do that, like to amplify you.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
we walk into rooms and don't amplify each other,
Yeah.
then we are doing each other a huge disservice.
Right. And the more we amplify each other, like, the more likely you just create that culture, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So that you do also get credit for things and it's not.
I think there's also like, Jared wants to be your ally, you know, like there is a point at which like people really talk about allyship as this like thing that they like aspire to do, but it's hard. There's like no map for really doing it. And in some ways, like being direct and saying like, hey, in this meeting, can you, I need you to like ask me a couple of questions about this and sort of uplift me in this particular way. That could be a way of making Jared into some sort of like ally into the
helper.
thing. Yeah. But Jared seems like he's not trust.
Interested in that.
There
Find
are some people that you
someone
can't
else.
trust.
And I just want to speak to the seeming like a jerk thing. So like there's seeming like a jerk, and then there's being a jerk, right? Like standing up for yourself, never think that that's some jerky behavior. That's just literally that person is the jerk, right? If they're making you stand up for yourself,
Right.
that person is the jerk. They're being a jerk. You are a person that's just they're just trying to live.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
You're a good person. Don't worry.
Yeah.
All of y'all are great people.
Yeah. Fighting for credit is really hard though. And I think that like being slighted by not getting enough credit can be very, very painful. And I think we all probably know what it's like to watch somebody take credit for your work. And it just feels terrible.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice.
Thanks.
Yeah. I think that's all we
Thanks.
have for the show.
You know what you have?
What?
Credits.
Yes, we have credits. That's a great transition. Thank you. Well, first, let me thank Julia and TK. Y'all were so great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is fun. I love having opinions. Do we leave now?
You can stay on stage.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's all for the show. In terms of credits, the show was produced by Megan Dietrich. Woo! Haley Hirschman. Woo! Eliza Mills. And Muna Danish. Thank you all. Y'all were such a great audience. Thank you so much for our first live show.